G'day mates, and welcome to this week's episode of My Normal Podcast. Today's guest is Matthew Jens, also better known as Jensy. Jensy is most commonly known for his production management skills in the music industry, but during COVID times he has recently taken on a new adventure called Beans to an End, which is a coffee roasting company that closely affiliates with foundations such as Dylan Alcott and Support Act. In today's episode, we dive deep into the reason why Jensy is the person to call when you're wanting to put on an event in an unconventional space, whilst also having the chance to chat to him about his relation with the Dylan Alcott Foundation and the opportunities that they are creating for disabled people entering the wild world of sports and making live event spaces more accessible. We also discuss We Make Events Australia. Red Alert Day is today. I would like to encourage everyone to head over to the We Make Events Australia website. There you can pick up an information pack containing a lot of information about how you can return the favour with a signature in supporting the live music entertainment industry in times of COVID. Please remember to like and subscribe. We are now on all platforms. I hope you enjoy today's episode, number 6 of My Normal Podcast. Alrighty, Matt, Jensy.
Hi, Jensy.
How are you, mate?
Jensy to my friends. You're more than welcome to call me that as well.
Welcome aboard. Welcome to My Normal Podcast, mate. How's your day going?
It's going pretty well, actually, as well as having a series of Zoom calls can be in my bedroom. That's what constitutes a busy work day for me these days. So that's basically what I've been doing all day today and fulfilling some coffee orders, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's the new normal.
It's my new normal for the time being, yeah.
For the listeners, can you, what is your normal?
My normal at the moment is quite varied. It sort of expands from being a coffee roaster, which is something I've done for a couple of years as a hobby, and also a production manager who is managing 0 gigs. There's a couple of things in the pipeline, but managing upcoming gigs and roasting coffee and reviewing headphones, it's kind of like the trifecta, as well as me being a family man. I've got a 4-year-old daughter and my partner here as well. So that's kind of my life at the moment. Yeah,
very good. Well, I figured we'd touch on the coffee first because I've got a fresh cup.
Oh, you've got it.
Going right here.
Which one are you drinking?
Decided to start with the
you got the DAF. Perfect. Awesome.
It's a delicious brew.
Is it? Excellent. Yeah. Glad to hear it.
I'm a big fan already. It's very aromatic. I like to pull the packet and get that fresh
Give
whiff.
It a whiff.
Yeah. This podcast is 6 episodes in, and I believe I hit you up pretty early because it's almost as if you telepathically knew the brief of what I wanted to do this podcast on the fact of I want to talk to creative people who are doing good things for other people. So you being a production manager and then opening up a coffee roasting business that has a heavy aspect to giving to foundations such as the Dylan Alcott Foundation and Support Act, which I'm a big fan of. You knocked this brief out of the park before.
Good.
So I commend you on that.
I just did it for the podcast, bro. And now that I've made it, I can stop the coffee roasting. I've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. You got the 12 people that I can confirm have listened to this podcast that are going to be giving you a call soon.
Amazing.
Why coffee?
It's kind of funny. I have actually been roasting coffee for years. I have a small. I'm based in Fitzroy in Melbourne's north, and we have a standard house. We have a big warehouse or anything like that. I've got a standard little coffee roasting setup for home coffee roasting, and I'm on all the enthusiast forums and everywhere else you can go to learn about this stuff. Yeah. And so since 2015, I started off with a little popcorn popper, which is the way that most amateur roasters get into it. I started off with that, and then I started home, I modified another one to get a bit more serious about it, and then eventually went a bit crazy with it and got the proper home roasting setup. Mainly just for myself, for my family, and then it sort of started gently spreading to family and friends as well, not necessarily selling it, but just just giving it out, really, like something I really enjoyed doing, tasting coffee, drinking coffee, talking about coffee. It's just something I really enjoyed doing. And then when COVID hit, and it hit pretty hard, obviously, especially my area is in large-scale events, so all of us have been hard done by. I'm definitely not hard done by, worse than anyone else. But realizing that when events do come back, I'll probably be one of the last ones to be actually doing much. And yeah, I just had some encouragement from some friends. Hey man, like you should try selling this. You should really, and I was like, nah, I can't do that. And then after a while I was like, you know what? Why not? Like I might as well give it a shot. I've been roasting it for years. I know it's a good product because I love doing it. And I like sharing, I like sharing things that I enjoy with other people as well. So it was actually Zach Waters, who's an artist. He was one of the main people who spearheaded me. He was like, "Nah, you got to do it." Like he really was pushing for it. So that was shout out to him. He's kind of like one of the main reasons I got into actually selling coffee in the first place. So from there, it was just a matter of putting together a couple of passions of mine. The Dylan Alcott Foundation is a foundation that I've done volunteer work for years. Dylan's a mate of mine as well. And Support Act obviously doesn't even need to be said how much they are doing the Lord's work at the moment in terms of helping people in our industry pay their bills and get some support.
Yeah, I mean, but also offering that mental health side to it too.
100%
is obviously associated with it. It's it's a thing that I wish existed. I've had another guest on who's actually on the board of Support Act. Coming
You're kidding.
up soon, but I'm not allowed to announce it yet, so that's boring.
That's huge.
Support Act has been around for a very long time, which was news to me, Zach, actually.
I didn't know that either. Really? How long have they been around?
Longer than I think.
That's a long time.
I assumed it was sort of 2-3 years, maybe, if that. But yeah, they've been around a while, and Crew Care and all those guys are all doing fantastic things.
They are, that was the other one I wanted to bring up was Crew Care, because they're doing some pretty incredible things, and the people on the board of there are some incredibly powerful and wonderful people who care deeply about our industry. So absolutely, probably worthy giving them a big shout out to.
Gives you that, like we don't have unions and all that sort of stuff in Australia.
If only we did.
Music, all that sort of stuff, but it almost gives you that. It gives you the part of a union that you would want to use, that actually caring about you in a humanitarian sort of way without being a bikie and selling ice.
Which not all unions do.
Yeah, I've never worked a real job in my life, so I don't know what a union does. So what's sort of like the capability or the output of Beans to an End? Like how do you start a coffee, like a commercial coffee roasting?
It's pretty random, isn't it? So I do all my roasting now, having started in my backyard for years. I then branched out. My brother-in-law told me about these facilities that exist, and this is the most Melbourne thing you've ever heard in your life.
Oh, I bet.
There are places that exist in Melbourne that are called co-roasting spaces. And it's just like a co-workspace. You've still got the indoor plants and you've still got the beautiful lighting, but it's instead of having desks and chairs, it's got coffee roasting facilities. So you literally, I'll book a time in and they'll be like, cool, like we'll have the machine warmed up for you. We'll have everything ready to go. They're incredible facilities and they're amazing people that work there. So I basically came to them and I said, look, here's my capability. Here's what I do at home. Here's what I'm trying to do. And they were like, easy, man. Like, let's do it. So they basically, they just let me effectively take beans, roast them, package them up, and then I bring them back here. So it's still me doing the whole thing, but it's just there, and they're providing amazing services, training, and everything else.
Yeah, and I guess that also helps with like the commercial kitchen health codes and all that sort of stuff.
Correct. Yeah. So I've got a food license for my premises at home, despite the fact that I don't technically handle food here. I just do the fulfillment of the orders. But yeah, all the food, all the actual packaging up is done at the co-roasting space.
Yeah, that's great. It's almost like a coffee rehearsal studio.
It's so cute. It's amazing. It's such a cool place. It's like heaven for me there, man. Like they've got best espresso machine gear there. And like, we just literally, it's not out of the ordinary for us to stand around a table with like 3 or 4 people, socially distanced, of course. And like, we've got 2 or 3 different cups of coffee in front of us, and we'll just take a sip of one and we'll just talk about it. And to so many people, they'll be like, "Oh, it sounds." I'm like, "Dude, I'm telling you, it's heaven. It's so sick."
Totally. It sounds like absolutely Melbourne.
It's
Is there
incredible.
heaps of places you can like park your fixie bike and maybe work on a cafe racer or something?
I have a fixie. You can see it out my window. Fitzroy.
Yeah, I've got a fixie too. I've because I live just around the corner from the I don't know if I should disclose this stuff on the internet. I live just around the corner from the velodrome, so I've been getting into.
Oh, you're kidding!
I've been getting into trying to get into that. It's fucking hard.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's you don't ever stop when you're on a velodrome.
I'm so sorry for all the times I've probably rinsed your place out. I've done so many gigs there.
No, we'll get onto that, and it's all good stuff because we get the occasional compassionate don't call the cops ticket. And so we're stoked, but I mean
that's great.
I'm going to be the guy complaining about music festivals.
There's a few of them.
So you said you've worked for Dylan Alcott. I assume you've got sort of, was it a friendship with Dylan Alcott or was it a foundation sort of aspect that came first?
I met Dill through the foundation, if that makes sense. So
was that through Ability Fest?
Yes, he started Ability Fest, and they engaged me to be the production manager for it, which we never charged them for because, like, why would you? And and just through that, we've done it 3 years, 2 years, and then we cancelled the third because of COVID. I think that's right. But we've been mates ever since, and I've just always been a fan of. It's funny when you get engaged to a gig and you sort of learn a little bit about the client along the way. And when I looked into the foundation, I was like, this is unbelievable. Like it's exactly what the world needs at the moment. And it takes someone like Dylan, who's he's quite outspoken and he's quite a recognizable face, being one of the best tennis players in the world, being the best wheelchair tennis player in the world at the moment. And it takes someone strong like him to be able to put accessibility, especially for young kids, and the challenges they face in the forefront of people's minds. Yeah.
I went down a bit of a Dylan Alcott rabbit hole a couple of days ago, and I think I would definitely like to become his friend. He seems like a really fucking cool dude.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's a menace at the same time. He's such a cool dude, but he's also a menace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess probably. I mean, I don't know if everyone knows who Dylan Alcott. Maybe can you give me a couple sentences as to what Dylan Alcott Foundation works on? And I guess even maybe a little bit about Dylan himself. I could try, but you're probably going to do it a lot better.
So their main core purpose is basically helping, like young Australians gain their confidence and overcome a lot of the challenges that a lot of people that like you and I don't have in day-to-day life when it comes to stuff like if we wanted to get into basketball, all we need to get is a basketball and go to the courts. Whereas for someone that's disabled, they don't have the same accessibility. Like they'll need a very expensive chair to get into that sort of stuff. They need access, they need vehicles. All this kind of stuff is stuff that we don't need, and it's something that we definitely I know I take for granted. And then when I started meeting some of the grant recipients and stuff like that from the Dylan Alcott Foundation, it was a bit of an eye-opening moment for me. It's part of the reason why I wanted to, I guess, venture out and donate some time, putting some money and some awareness into it as well. I ran the first thing I did, a production managed Ability Fest 2 years in a row, and then in December last year, I ran a fundraiser for the Dylan Alcott Foundation, which is basically a marathon, like a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu marathon, which I called a rollathon, which is basically like 8 straight hours of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And we raised about $8,000 for the foundation, which is pretty cool. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but look.
No, it's good stuff.
It's kind of, you should maybe chuck a little link up on your website whenever you drop this. I'll shoot you some resources.
I think I've been chucking up like donate tabs on the episodes too. So
perfect.
Last week's one was with Support Act, so I think it's
amazing.
yeah, I mean, hope that the 12 people who watch will have access to that.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Very good. I was wanting to sort of talk about production later on, but something like Ability Fest, it's such an incredible achievement for Dylan to put that together. I went to, I guess it was the last one, the one with presets.
Yep, 2019. Yep.
Oh man, I was just in a euphoric state of just how fucking cool is this?
It's so good.
I'm walking distance away to seeing the presets, but also too just seeing that space transform into a festival site. It's extremely unconventional.
It's not an easy thing to do. Yeah.
No. It's essentially a misshaped footpath.
A large concrete donut, we call it.
Yeah. I'm sure there would have been incredible challenges in
always
in turning that place into an accessible spot for a heavily focused a brief of being accessible for disability and that sort of thing, but also to putting on an enjoyable show. Yeah,
no, you're exactly right, man. You've hit it on the head. It's basically one thing to do a gig at the Velodrome, for which we've done heaps. It's another thing to produce an event there that has a focus on accessibility, mainly because it's not like Horde and Pavilion. It's not like MCA where it's all flat, solid floors. It's grassy. It's hilly. There's a lot of it. There's inclines. Exactly. But from there, I feel like that's part of the magic of Ability Fest in a way, because it is a challenge, and it's a challenge not just for myself, but there's a lot of challenges in doing an event like this. All the artists, for example, they all donate their time, all of them. And that's an incredible thing. And it's from their generosity, it sort of spreads like wildfire, because they'll bring, say, floor packages in, and what happened in 2019 is that the presets came on. They said, cool, we'll do the show for free, no problem at all. Let's get MPH in to do the floor packages. And then when MPH got engaged, they're like, let's just do the whole rig. We'll do everything. Yep. And we were like, love it. So it sort of just spreads, outward from there. And then, it's all these amazing people like Colorblind. They always jump on board every year, and they do an incredible job. Yep. JPJ, everyone just throws gear at it, throws resources at it, and they're so happy to get behind the cause. And as a result, it creates this event, which is, I'm not involved in ticket sales of the event, by the way, so I've got no reason to be talking it up. But it basically, when you're walking around the event, and this is the feedback I've received about it, is that it's a different vibe. And you were sort of touched on that before, but it's a different vibe because everyone is so friendly and, euphoric. There's this an amazing feeling in the air of just watching this magic happen. There's a lot of people going to the music event that never usually would go to music events because they're maybe concerned about the accessibility features they might require. But having platforms near the stage that people can access, only if they need to, that's an amazing thing to have. A lot of festivals, a lot of music events in general will have accessibility as a box that's checked, we'll chuck a ramp there. And then it's not I understand there's budgetary concerns and all that kind of stuff, but there's never quite enough there that can be, there's always that little bit more. So what Ability Fest has done, which is really, really cool, is that now they've got some of these bigger promoters thinking really, really carefully about accessibility. They're starting to hire consultants to come on and discuss ways that they can create a more accessible environment for the music festival, which at the end of the day is great because then everyone gets to enjoy it. And that's sort of what the artists would from a fundamental perspective, it's kind of they want to share what they have with everyone and let's make that possible for them. So that's kind of,
you will essentially buy a ticket to go have a good time and you leave having a really good
exactly.
Or even better, a conversation about making general life in general, but also we're in production and putting gigs on, and
totally.
I couldn't tell you how many venues in Melbourne alone or around that are not accessible.
Don't get me started, man.
Music is essentially created in these dive bars that are underground and all that sort of stuff. And if it can't fit an 8x10 in it, it's not going to be able to fit a human in it. And it's not going to be safe.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's extremely contagious. What he's doing down there, and yeah, I was really gutted when he had to put it off for this year's headline of COVID.
I mean, look, it'll come back. It'll come back. We'll be fine. It'll be fine. I think there's such a strong groundswell for an event like that it's like it's not an issue.
Yeah, I want the Velodrome to be doing gigs every weekend. It's a perfect space for it. Like
you'd be one of the only neighbours that feels that way, my friend.
Yeah, I mean it's technically an industrial estate, but it's kind of not. But like, I mean, like all the cars that do burnouts down our street are louder than the festivals.
It's there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that when we're loading out. It's sounds of Coburg.
Yeah. We've got this one dude who's just like loves testing out his Harley on a Tuesday night about 9 p.m. And it's just like, there's near this school, there's just always like, it's incredible. Like we tried to, you lose count of steps of how long these skid marks are. And it's quite impressive.
Oh my God. What a legend.
Yeah. What a Coburg industrial estate legend. Where did production start for you?
Oh man, it's an interesting one because it's not. Sorry, you caught me off guard with that. That's not something I really expected to do. I was studying at RMIT, just doing like live production stuff. And it was actually audio visual, sort of like a broad course. And people were going to that course that wanted to do gigs, and there's people that went to that course that wanted to do like media, news, all that kind of stuff. I really actually wanted to. I was in video at the time. I was a video editor full time, and then I swapped from there into uni, TAFE. And when I was there for a couple of years, really focusing on the video side of things. I wanted to edit videos or work in the back of the news van. Like I was a stringer for Channel 9 News, and I had like a turf, which is Geelong, Torquay, Anglesey. So if anything happened there, Channel 9 would call me and I'd rush down there. It's like that film. What's that film? Nightcrawler. It was like that, but less weird. So if there was like a shark scare or something, I'd run down there with a camera and film it and go up to people and be like, how does it feel? Like that was kind of my gig. And then anyway, so I was at TAFE, doing that for a couple of years, focused on that. And then, life kind of spiraled out of control and got a bit shit for a while. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to be cursing on this or not. Whatever. And then basically Steve Ward, who's a well-known, production manager, he was one of the teachers. Oh, is he still? No, anyway, he was one of the instructors there. He noticed me going to a bit of a tailspin and he was like, hey, come do a gig. And I was like, oh, gigs? Nah. And he's like, no, seriously, just come and help me out. Just blah, blah, blah. Like he was just trying to pull me out of this rut. And then basically I went and did one gig with him, which was at 170 Russell. And the whole time I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is the most cool thing I've ever done in my life. Like, it was so exciting, like working to the deadline and checking the schedule, what needs to be done and figuring out where everyone went and what everyone was doing and all the disciplines, everyone's got their specialty.
Yep.
And from that day, I was like, nah, this is it. This is what I want to do. Like, change everything. And it really helped me on that uptick and like just completely changed me as a person.
Yep.
And yeah, from then on, it was just, I just got a job at ALS with Louis Constantino, sweeping floors, fixing speakers, soldering stuff. He taught me a lot. And then, that was pretty much it. Just sort of swapped from place to place until I just became the rat bag that I am now.
Yeah.
I've still got a lot to learn.
What was the thing that sort of shifted with you or sort of like you then were going like, I'm now like full steam ahead in production?
I honestly, it was when I started working, it's kind of funny. I don't know. Like I was working in nightclubs a lot, doing lighting on weekends, and then would just do gigs here and there. It's a number of years ago now. And then I just started getting a couple of gigs. Some of the promoters that worked in those nightclubs started venturing out into the bigger event space. And I guess I just kind of ventured with them. Like it was just kind of, it sort of spread and we went bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was kind of a weird creep. And it got to the point where I don't really touch venues for a while. And now my specialty for the past couple of years has sort of been mid to life size events.
Yep.
And yeah, just really enjoy it. Got a bit of a knack for it. So
yeah.
hopefully
What were some of the
back.
gigs? What were some of the gigs kicking around when you were sort of finding your feet?
That's a good question. The industry launch. So this is a bit specific. Industry launch of the CDJ 2000, not the Nexus, the original 2000. So when we went from the CDJ 1000 Mark III to the CDJ 2000. So when the 2000 got announced. So this is back when like CDJ 1000 Mark III was everywhere. Venues, festivals, everything. And then when Pioneer announced the new model, I was just like a lackey on that announced gig. So that's sort of what got me interested in DJ gear in the first place. It was that sort of an event that was kind of like early days, which is funny when you think about it. CDJ 2000 is really recent, and you're like, oh no, hang on, that was 10 years ago. Because what are we now? 2020. Yeah.
There's a new version out every week or something with Pioneer, isn't there?
Yeah, I know. Dude, I love DJ gear. I don't own any, but that's one thing that Matty Downs, SWS, I've done stuff with him for years and years and years. I toured with SWS doing DJ gear for all sorts of amazing artists. So that's a big part of my thing that I've done for years is DJ gear. Yeah. Did you always had sort of an interest in electronic music, or did that sort of just come with the territory? No, it came with the territory. Oh man, my music taste is messed up. But yeah, it's funny. You listen to this music for so long, it sort of becomes ingrained in your head. And at first you don't really think you'll listen to it that much. And then the more you hear of it, you're like, oh yeah, I like this tune. And then by the end of it, you're listening to it heaps. And now I just listen to all sorts of everything. But it is something that I listen to a lot. Probably more so now that I've been sticking around it for so long. I don't really listen to EDM or anything like that at home. It's more like, if it's going to be anything that I hear from gigs, it'll be techno mainly.
Yeah. I mean, like, to describe my music taste is like, what's your favorite emotion, really? It's like, it's whatever, like, there's no limitations as to
totally
how angry or how sad I can be,
totally
or how happy I can be,
100%.
Yeah. So, and I think it definitely, like I started sort of mixing bands professionally, sort of like 16, 17, and I could have a Norwegian death metal or a jazz band come across my desk, and you've got to understand.
That's awesome.
Understand why they're in front of you. So. You definitely learn to have that very varied taste of music.
For sure.
When anyone can be your next paycheck. What's exciting you in production, pre-COVID or even post-COVID?
Nothing excites me about production post-COVID, young man. It's looking horrible. Nah, that's not true. That's not true. Partially true. Pre-COVID, like. Man, we did some crazy stuff. The Wool Store, that massive place out in Footscray, which used to literally house wool for years and years and years.
Probably before that, run me through sort of like, what was your last, say, 3 passion projects?
From a gig perspective?
Well, I don't say mean passion, but as in passion, like projects that you like invested a lot of passion in, but were still kicking pretty serious goals in.
Like from a hobby perspective, you mean?
No, your last 3 gigs that have just been like really enjoyable to work on.
So every year,
just to give the audience an idea of like your typical event.
What I would look forward to for sure is Beyond the Valley every year. Nick Marston is the production manager, and he hires me as a stage manager to look after the tent stage, where Nick is all about rock and roll and that lifestyle, and the tent stage is all about techno, and it's very, very far entrenched in that community. So he often, basically, I'll get there every year. He'll just hand me the keys and say, please just go look after it. And it's the best fun. Like, it was boiling hot. It was 4 days. It was a lot of slam and techno. Like, I feel really passionate about that. There was really good music, really good artists, and
Beyond the Valley sort of like stage builds is definitely like a world class.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff out there, man. Yeah. It's crazy stuff. But like, it's cool. Like, it's a young crowd. They're trendy. Like, they're not just. It's not like a Bush Doof crowd where they're all like it's it's good vibes all day. Yeah, that is good.
The down in Phillip Island. Is that on the?
It used to be.
Rock
That
site?
used to be the Pyramid Rock site, and now they're at Warragul Way.
Right.
Pyramid Rock was awfully windy. Understatement of the year. I also really enjoy working with Dolla, who we look after all the production for. His music and shows and gigs are sort of really starting to pave the way in the Australian scene for, what we're trying to do is set a bit of a standard for what we think Australian artists, especially in the dance scene, what they're capable of doing, what sort of helping realize that potential. And Dom is incredible, like him as an artist, him as a person. The stuff he's capable of is ridiculous musically. We did that Untitled Day Party live stream, which he was part of, which was pretty cool. For those of you who didn't see it, it was basically like in a warehouse and Dom was in the middle of it performing. And then because we didn't have punters to worry about, we could spread out wide with the lighting design. So we had lasers all the way around. We had LED strip all the way on the floor. It was Andy Mutton design. And it was incredible. Like Sloth operating lasers, Andy on lights, me hanging around drinking beers. It was a thing. Yeah.
It's like in like an airport hangar or something like that, wasn't it?
There was also that one. That was the second day party we did. But similar concept. Yeah, that looked very cool. Thanks.
So I mean, what's the best production you've seen?
I don't know, man. It's kind of funny. It's
in the flesh. It's got to be in the flesh.
In the flesh. I don't go to any gigs. This is the problem. I should go to more gigs. I really enjoyed working on Don't Judge Me for this. With SynergyEvents, we looked after production for some really, really big trance gigs over the past couple of years at places like Hisense Arena and Etihad Stadium, showing my age by using those names. And that's the sort of gig where you've got like fingers of truss all the way down the roof with screens on it. You've got flames everywhere, lasers everywhere. Like you're talking Hisense Arena and people are starting to, like Etihad Stadium, and you're still talking about weight load limits in the roof. And you're like, that's getting a bit up there. Let's get a bit up there. And you're like, what is this rig? Like crazy stuff just to have one DJ up the top putting a USB in. That's the performance part, and the rest of it is all like time code madness, like things you've never even said. You sort of stand there in front of your house going, whoa, like that kind of gig is exciting from a technical, like I'm not much into trance music, but from a technical perspective and just from like a showmanship perspective, it's like, okay, like that's seeing this technology come to life in this kind of way is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm similar. Like I couldn't name a trance artist, but I would 100% go to a trance gig to just see what lights are capable of doing.
And like time code stuff with lasers and screens, like anything. Like even when you watch Rufus, like when they do their show, when everything's all in sync and time coded, it's like, wow, I appreciate the gear and I appreciate seeing it all come together at once. Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, for any of the listeners, I definitely encourage you to just jump onto YouTube and type in like festivals like Ultra or even the Chemical Brothers latest. Look at phone footage, whatever you got to do, but just take note of that's probably a basketball court that started with, and then it probably took a day or two for that to turn into someone's vision, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of the creative sort of designs?
No, I don't really touch that myself. What I like to do more so is get someone who is creative and help them realize their vision. I do that with a number of promoters using Sloth. Like he's an amazing draftsman, and basically being able to, when a promoter's sort of saying, I like to have this sort of a thing, and Sloth and I'll go back and digest it and then we'll create it, and they'll be like, okay, cool, that's what I wanted, but change this. So that's, I like to be able to talk with someone about what they envision and then creating that. That's something I take a lot of pride in, and something I'm slowly getting better at, slowly.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely something I've been trying to sort of push towards in my production sort of journey. And it's something I didn't really think I would enjoy so much, being like an audio guy. But when you design something on a piece of paper and then you're putting it together, watching it and see it all make noise and see everyone enjoy it. It's quite a thrill.
It is. It really is, man. There's nothing quite like it for sure.
Yeah, you can build some pretty big canvases.
That's right.
Yeah. What does it take, in your opinion, to make noise in the production industry?
Andrew Rogers. No, sorry. Go on. What were you saying?
No, I mean, so who's for the listeners? Who is Andrew Rogers?
Andrew Rogers is the number one acoustic consultant for events in Australia, bar none.
Yep.
Right. If you want to make noise in Australia, you do it through Andrew. He'll let you know where to put the PA, how high to put it, how loud you can go, and for how long. And if you break the rules, he's the one that will report it to council. So be good to him. He's a man of science.
Well, I mean, figuratively speaking, like in terms of your role, what does it take to get attention in production land? Like, what is it that you're sort of putting forward in your job that is getting you hired in your industry? I
don't know, man. I still haven't figured that out. It's kind of funny. Like it's one of those things where every time I do a successful event, I'll sort of spawn 5 more off it. And then from there, it's just picking and choosing the right way to go, looking after people who look after me. It's one of those awful things where I'll go to RMIT and I'll actually speak every year about being in the industry. And this same question will pop up, like, how can I come and do production management? I'll be like, it's not easy. It's not easy to break in. It's not easy to start. It's sort of a weird Seinfeld reference, getting your hand stamped on the way in. So once you've got your hand stamped and you're in there, everyone's like, cool, ring Jens. And I don't know how I got there, but it's kind of funny. Like a lot of people get into production, like Nick Marston, like I was saying before, Nick, he was a backline tech. He's really good with keyboards and stuff. And now he's just grown into an amazing production manager from that. A lot of people have, like Daggers as well in Adelaide. He's an incredible backline tech and stage manager, but now he's also an amazing production manager. So no one really sets out to be in production, I don't think. They just sort of have their discipline and they sort of gravitate towards that, that type B bureaucracy kind of role to the point where they're interested more in the organisation of things rather than just being someone on the floor. So a bit of passion, a lot of fisting, a lot of pain, late nights, very little pay, a lot of responsibility.
Yep. I guess, I mean, so probably for the listeners, and then also probably too, I can make sure I'm doing the right thing. What is the day-to-day task of a production manager in a touring aspect?
A production manager, I guess the best way that I could break it down would be if you think about the role of, say, a construction manager for a house. So if I'm a client, if I'm a home buyer, and I've got a house that I want to build, I don't know concreters. I don't know architects. I don't know all these people. All I know is Jimbo, the construction manager. And I'll say, Jimbo, what's it going to cost me to do this? And he'll be like, cool. Jimbo goes out and gets an architect. Jimbo goes out and gets the best renderers. He knows the wood guys. He gets people who are suited for the job. He'll draw up a budget. He'll get the drawings for me. He'll present it to me and say, here's what your house is going to look like. What do you think? So that kind of is the same thing in my eyes as what a production manager does for an artist or for a promoter, depending on what the production manager is doing. But that's similar to what I do for a promoter. They'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I've booked this venue. I've got all these artists booked. I've got this much to spend. Make the gig, please. And I'll be like, okay, all right. Here's your schedule. Here's your drawings. Here's it. And that's kind of, that's a very simplified version of what a day-to-day life of a production manager is all about.
Very good. What is the glue in a good crew for you? Say that.
No, man, that's such a good question. It's, for me, honestly, it's morale. It's so important. It's so important. Feeding people properly, putting your foot down with promoters who are trying to burn you on both ends, like making sure the crew's looked after. Don't just sit in the shed the whole time. Like get out there and unload trucks with them if you've got the capability of doing so. I think it's really important to be not so much like you have to be everyone's best friend, but let them know you're there for them. There's nothing worse than a production manager who doesn't give a shit. If you've got like a national production manager who's handed over to a local production manager and the local production manager doesn't care, it's problematic for the morale of the crew. And the thing is, when issues pop up, if you've got strong morale and everyone on the crew is feeling good from every supplier, it means people start sort of coming out of their shell a bit. you'll get like video guys on a stage at a festival, for instance. You'll get video guys who will be like, I'm going to push risers. You know what? I'm feeling great. I'm in a good mood. I've been well fed. I'm not just going to sit here in my chair the whole time. I'll get up and push some risers around. I don't care. You know, like these sort of little things add up. And then when it gets to the point where if you're doing a difficult gig and everyone's morale is high, it makes it so much better than everyone's swearing and they're upset. They're going home early. They don't want to come there in the morning. Like, the glue for me is morale. Like, it's so, so important. And using the right people, right gear and all that kind of stuff obviously is very important. But, the big one for me is morale.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think if anyone was looking, I mean, if I decided to go and do any other job and someone come across with a like the CV and it said that they'd worked a festival or worked sort of tour management, I wouldn't care sort of what their capability is. I know that they've got the right work ethic to what it takes to just do whatever. Like I feel like production crew and people who work within the music industry, it's not a one hat job. And it just takes a type of person. It takes a type of person to be programmed to be able to just put on gigs in fields, put in things that are safe, put in things that are entertaining. And there's so much that happens behind the scenes that people will never ever know about.
Correct.
Because they're paid their ticket. And people would be very very interested, and hopefully through this podcast, people can sort of get an idea of the type of I guess the DNA of what it's what is running through the blood of these people putting these things together. We're not just pushing cases and like wearing a black shirt for 3 days in a row.
There's often a lot of that too. Let's be real.
But it's what you do with it.
There's a lot of organisation that goes into it that people don't realise, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself if you were starting out again?
Run! Don't do it. COVID's coming. It's going to take everything.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. I wouldn't change anything, man. Like honestly, it's a deeply philosophical question. If you really break it down, I wouldn't change anything. Even if I could travel time, I wouldn't change much. Bad things that happen to you, shit gigs that happen, they're all important lessons. And I've had some corkers, but they're all lessons that I've learned that I think have made me better in the industry. And, not to start beating the drum about martial arts, but it's the same sort of thing. If you get the absolute shit cracked out of you in martial arts, you learn from that. And it's the same thing with gigs. So if I could go back and tell myself anything, I'd probably say, hey, you should eat better, because then it actually helps you operate a bit more lively when you've had less sleep. Fun fact.
100%. Yeah, you'll find out the hard way doing a shitty bus tour through the States and eating fucking cheeseburgers.
100%, man.
Having cheeseburgers for breakfast and dinner. And wondering why you miss home so much. It's because you're eating cheeseburgers every day.
Yep.
Yeah. What's your shittest gig?
Oh, I can't.
You don't have to name names. I'd like you to, but
I can't name names. I've had some corkers though. Things that didn't pan out very well, and things that weren't organised properly from numerous parties, and things that weren't anticipated by myself that could have been, have resulted in things like not only sound checks getting cancelled, but doors being pushed back, and artists having contracts discussed with promoters about, hey, our sound check didn't happen, so is the gig going to happen? All those sorts of conversations happening while I'm trying to put a gig together. Only happened once, really, really bad. Won't name gig, but it was, oh boy, did I learn a lot from that.
It's only happened once. That is so disheartening.
It only needs to.
I couldn't count on either of my hands on how many times that's happened to me. So
it was a big gig. It was a big one, so it was a bit nasty, but that's fine. We grow from this stuff. Yeah,
I mean that's exactly right. It's the biggest power moves in my career have been my failures. Absolutely,
100%. Yeah, for sure.
And it's a tough industry to pick yourself up in, because it's just you.
That's right.
And you just get good at figuring it out.
That's right. You sort of have to, really. Yeah.
Yep. Was there a project in your life that sort of changed the trajectory of what you were doing?
Not so much one project, to be honest with you. If anything, it would have been that what I was harping on before about wanting to be in the news industry. There was something that turned me off that, actually probably worth bringing up this story, because it's a good one. But when I was a stringer, did I already mention the big media company? Yeah, I did. Fuck it, that'll be right.
What is a stringer?
Sorry, stringer. Like I was saying before, you're the person who's in charge of filming news events for a certain turf. The stringer is the term they give to the freelancer that goes out there with a camera and hunts down the story once they're given the tip. So I was given a tip quite late at night that 2 people had drowned out on a coastal town in Victoria. So I drove out there. I had dreadlocks at the time. I was driving a Commodore. That's kind of the image. Yeah. And so I went down there. I actually got there before the police did. I don't know how I got the tip so early, but I did. And as I was there, the paramedics had retrieved the people from the ocean and were zipping them up in body bags because they were well and truly dead. Yeah. And so as they were zipping them up, I was filming them because I was doing it for the news. And they looked up at me and they're like, "You right there, bud?" And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I'm with XYZ news company that I'm not going to mention." And yeah, just filming for the news. And they were like, "Sure." Like, come on, mate. And I was like, no, we're good. And anyway, so police came, told me to scram. That's fine. And so as I was driving home, I got a phone call from the news company again saying, "Hey, the parents of the deceased are at the police station now, giving, the statement. Can you head down there and interview them?" And I was like, bit weird, but sure. So I went to the police station, knocked on the door because that's how coastal towns are. That, you knock on the door of the cop shop. Cop answered, and I was like, "Hey, I'm Matthew Jens. I'm from XYZ News Company. I'm actually filming a piece for these people that have died, and I'd like to interview the parents." "Yeah, sure, no worries." And they went and checked, and they came back and they said, "Nah, look, they're not interested." And I was like, "Cool, man. Who could blame you, right?" Went back in the car, called the news people, and they were like, "Yeah, see, that's not really going to work for us, Matthew." And I was like, "Sorry." And they were like, "Has your camera got a record light?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Can you turn it off?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Cool. So you don't have to interview them per se, but if you just turn the record light off and hold the camera down by your side and maybe just ask them how they're feeling as they leave." And I was like, this job kind of sucks, dude. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, it was a moment for me I was a teenager at the time, and I was like, later. Because that's a moral boundary that I wasn't going to let myself cross. So I said no. And I gave him the footage they already had, and I said, "Nice knowing you." Yeah.
It's
it's a pretty messed up one.
It's funny what comes across your desk, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, not to that. I guess the other side of that story, I was production managing GH Hotel, which was a gay bar in St Kilda. Rest in peace.
The Greyhound.
Yeah. And I had a call one day, and it was like, "Hey, one of my brother was a patron there, and he really loved the place. We were hoping to sort of hold. He's just recently passed away. We were hoping to hold the service there." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure that'd be good. Do it on a weekday, couple extra bucks across the bar."
Yep.
And then I don't think it was like one of my first sort of events that I'd booked there. And I sort of found it weird that they wanted to sort of start at like 10, and I was like, "Oh, that's really early." And then I rocked up in the morning, and there's a hearse out the front, and I was like, "Fuck, we're holding the funeral." Shit.
Oh, God.
I didn't ask questions, and they didn't answer my questions that I didn't ask. And then at that time, all the directors were having a directors meeting, if you would call it that, the same day, and they were like, "Aiden, what the fuck?"
Oh, God.
So but fast forward,
dude,
it was actually one of the most beautiful things I've ever been a part of. This dude, I wouldn't remember his name, but I also wouldn't say it. But he was actually in the very early stages of Bowie, was his stylist, and I got to see his service and all of his pictures with Bowie, and he got carried out to Bowie, and I was just like,
"Oh, wow.
What a bloody beautiful thing." But yeah, it's funny.
How cool is that?
I didn't think production managing a gay bar would also entail running lights at a funeral.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't choose your you can't choose your clients. You know.
Oh man,
they come to you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Has your journey taken away, or even better still, added to any of your relationships?
No, like it's a pretty introspective question. It's a good one. My partner is a warrior in that she puts up with a lot, having to deal with me doing late nights and early mornings all in one, especially because we've got a 4-year-old. So bless her heart. She is, she struggles herself because she's got chronic pain conditions. So it's something that we navigate a lot together as a family. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my early mornings are spent doing Jiu Jitsu in pre-COVID world. And a lot of my evenings on the weekends are spent on gigs. And in between then is pre-production madness. So she puts up with a lot. And I think it's bonded us in a way that we have a good understanding. Like I try and devote as much time to them as I possibly can, and they definitely take priority. But yeah, I don't think it's negatively affected any of my relationships. If anything, it just makes me work harder to navigate and strengthen those bonds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. I think you've probably actually already touched on this before, but like being sort of a production manager, what is it like for you to be a passenger on a production?
Dude, it's so much fun. It's my favorite thing ever. It's like the way that I describe it is like I spend all year designing racetracks. Like the curves, I talk about the curvature, the straights, the flat, everything. Like talking about apex angles, that's what I do day in, day out. And then there'll be 1 or 2 or maybe 3 gigs a year where someone says to me, hey, take the keys, go for a spin on my track. And I'll be like, hell yeah, baby. So like whenever I go up and do work at Splendour for Hayden Johnson, or whenever I'm doing Beyond the Valley with Nick Marson, or all these big festivals, and I'm like, looking at the pre-production paperwork, like, that's brilliant. Or like, there's always these things that I'm recognizing they're doing, especially with the guys who are super senior in the industry. They've got these ways about handling things. Like they're always cool as a cucumber. The world will be burning and they'll be like, yeah, someone get a really big fire extinguisher. Like they're so good at what they do. And so, driving around those racetracks is an amazing experience for me. I even forgot what your question was, but I just got excited about having to say that.
I think that's probably the best analogy you could probably do for it. I mean, do you get a lot of inspiration? I already know the answer to this question.
Heaps.
From working on these other productions?
All the time. Like it's an enlightening experience. And it's good because I'll happily take any role. Like, I don't mind being a stagehand. I don't mind being a backline tech. I don't, like I'm production managing these decent gigs. I don't mind being a stagehand on another one because that's the best way to get the full scope of the experience. Like they're the people who are interacting with your artists. They're the people who are the gears that work the whole gig. So if you understand what their experience is from the ground up and make sure they're doing their jobs properly and they're happy and you get an understanding of what they go through, then you'll be able to manage them better when it's your turn at the top, if you get what I mean. Like it's often overlooked and people will just, no, I can't do a 14-hour day, we'll feed them one. All this kind of stuff happens. And it's like, no, like they're at the end of the day, literally at the end of the day, it'll come 9 p.m, your headliner's arriving. These guys are toast because you've been burning them both ends all day. Yeah. And that stuff's not on. So places like Splendour and Beyond the Valley, they look after their stage crews so well, and it's in turn taught me how to do the same. So,
yeah, I got to get me some of those. Got to get me some of those good gigs.
I'm all about good gigs.
Yeah. What's some of the most like complex, challenging sort of racetracks you've built?
So the wool store, Footscray Wool Store is both a beautiful thing and a nightmare all at once. It is we touched on it before, but it's an enormous, like massive, like we're talking like 15,000 people type space. It is massive. And so we've put on some crazy stuff there. Like we hung a giant decor ring that was made by Hardley Architecture in the roof out of there for a big dance music event. And it was extremely challenging from a rigging perspective and from just a production. Everything about it was challenging, but it was so rewarding and so cool because Melbourne doesn't have that many venues. So being able to do something exciting like that, it's cool when people do a little car park thing, that stuff's really fun and really, really great, and it's great to see more spaces being utilised. But having a big venue that's like Melbourne Arena size type stuff, that's challenging and that's rewarding stuff. Like that was awesome for sure. Yep.
Yeah, right. Is what's sort of the most challenging part in sort of putting a gig on where it's not meant to be a gig?
I don't know why, but I keep getting phone calls about this. I don't know why, but my name keeps, every time someone's like, I've got a gig on that I want to put in a really painful spot, people go, yeah, cool Jens. Like I don't get that many gigs in venues, like proper venues. I always get the gigs that are in like, yeah, so I want to serve like 15,000 people in a man's shoe. Like, can you put it in the shoe? Like, that's kind of the sort of gig I get phone calls about. So it's hardened me up in a good way, because then I know what the usual pitfalls are, and you can't trust the engineering you get from the venue. You've got to bring your own engineers in to go through it with a boom lift and get up there and actually look at the angles and measure the metal. Like, you've got to do that yourself. There's all these little pitfalls that I'm now used to. And to be honest, I really enjoy that. Like going into a venue and doing a front, mid and rear truss, and it's like a couple of bands on. Really, really love it. Still exciting stuff. But part of me now craves that little bit of pain, that little bit of like unusual, quirky space. Like I'm kind of getting really into that. I mean, Melbourne Music Week, I'm wearing the shirt. Melbourne Music Week November last year, we built Cubic, which is basically like a small city full of IBCs, water tanks with a light in each, and that was, I saw that one. That was a thing.
Pretty cool.
That was a thing.
Yeah, it was like, and all the water tanks had lights in them, and they were
it was very cool. It was very, very cool.
Very cool. How did it sound in there?
It sounded bloody brilliant. It was honestly, it was bloody brilliant. We had all of the audio was very, very carefully calculated in terms of box positioning and placement. Yep. And everything was tuned just fixed. Everything was tuned in a way that it wouldn't reflect off the towers too much, and we positioned the towers in a way that it wouldn't bounce everything away, as well as being conscious about neighbours and all that kind of stuff at the same time. So there was a lot of moving parts to make that sound good, but it sounded good. Good.
It's a beautiful thing. What are some, other than I guess neighbours, what are some of the shittest regulations that you deal with on a regular basis? Sorry, I should ask that. Are there any bad regulations?
There is and there's not. It's always challenging doing events in Victoria because of the VBA. They're both doing the Lord's work and also being a pain in the ass at the same time. I didn't just say that about the VBA. Edit that part out.
What is VBA? Is that environmental?
No, it's a Victorian Builders Association. Just Googling that to make sure I don't get that wrong. Victorian Building Authority. Sorry, I knew I got that wrong. Victorian Building Authority, which is fine. So basically what it means is they are the governing body to oversee structures in Victoria, and they don't exist in other states. So they are both very concerned about the safety, which they should be, which is great. But at the same time, it does inherently, as a production manager, it makes it more difficult to deal with deadlines when it comes to producing an event in Victoria. So if you've got a touring event, something like Ultra, and you're doing it in several states, you can, in Melbourne, you need to have permits and authorities that need to be set in stone a certain amount of time before the event that don't actually apply in other states. So in terms of like locking in budgets, locking in stage signs and all that kind of stuff, needs to be done considerably earlier under much stricter regulations in Victoria that don't apply in other states. So that's one that is makes a lot of sense, but is objectively an obstacle that you need to navigate in Melbourne locally. And sound stuff's fine. Honestly, sound stuff is okay. We can get around it. With people like Andrew Rogers and with the sound design technology we've got these days, it's one more thing to have to be aware of, but it's not something that is a deal breaker. It's just one more piece of the pizza for me to eat. Yep.
I mean, I'm not sure if you were involved, and I have no idea, but from memory, we Listen Out in its initial stages down at. I think I assume the original site was Catani Gardens, where it is.
Yep, still there now, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of feedback on like the main stage was way too quiet.
Yeah,
and that's just a really, I guess that sort of comes with the territory, and they're those sort of regular. I mean, that the festival wants it to be loud and
that's right,
proud and that sort of stuff, but Yeah, I guess I don't know. It's they're the sort of regulations and that sort of stuff. And I mean, even like my time through the States last year, like from every dive bar to every outdoor stage, there is just the most ridiculous reasons as to why, that sort of stuff. And
yeah, no, man, it's a challenge that we have to overcome. Like we did a bushfire appeal fundraiser earlier this year, and that was down in Seaworks in Williamstown. And part of the issue there is that Seaworks, as it's a museum, and it's right near houses, like across the road from houses. And the way that we got around that was using sound modelling, and by basically using the modelling to help us place shipping containers behind every stage. So every stage was like encased in shipping containers. And they do the same thing down at Listen Out, Catani Gardens. Just shipping container sittings, it just helps so much. But yeah, I like it. I don't know, I like that. I like having the confidence. The reason I like it is because you spend so much time doing all of the containment and the design and the sound mitigation measures that when you go on site and you start paying music and you've got a decibel meter giving you averages and you've got someone monitoring around the edge and all that kind of stuff, you can sit there and confidently say, we got this. The cops aren't going to rock up and say, excuse me, this is too loud, because we can be like, let's have a chat. I can confidently tell them we've done X, Y, Z. We're doing this to monitor it. I'm expecting this to happen, and we're doing these changes at this time. I actually get a lot of weird, sick enjoyment out of doing that for some weird reason. I don't know why.
I think you've just explained to yourself why you get the call.
I don't know why I like it. It's a weird thing to like, but I just really enjoy that part of it. Andrew Rogers tells me I care too much. That's the thing that he often says to me. But I don't know. I just get a real kick out of it.
Yep. Yeah. I think for any promoter, finding someone who enjoys making, I guess, their gig happen. Yeah, you're gonna get the gig.
It's what we love.
Yep. How are you at saying no?
Shocking. How are you at saying no?
On a personal level, pretty bad, but on a professional level, I don't get the opportunity.
There's something that Bruce Johnson taught me. I'm happy to bestow it onto you as well. Bruce Johnson, obviously, a pretty brilliant dude at what he does. He's got his technique that I hope he doesn't mind me disclosing it to you. He says, start with yes and make your way to no. So if a client's saying to you, hey, I want the stage to float in the sky and I just want the cables dangling off the back, you don't say no. You say, yeah, we can do that. It'll cost you $6 million.
Yep.
And you sort of let them say no. So in a weird way, it's not being dishonest. It's just helping. People often don't like hearing the word no. Like it's something that is quite abrasive to a lot of people. So if you can help them realize why it might not be the best idea without being conniving or dishonest about it, start with yes and state your reasons as to why you think it's maybe not the best idea. Listen to what they're saying. I forgot what your question is, but I just get really wrapped up in Bruce's analogy because he said it to me years ago, and I've been obsessed with it ever since.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, essentially, production is a solutions company.
Exactly.
And when we're dealing with production, our tools are scaffolding, lights, sound, things that go bang, pop, wow, and can kill.
Yeah.
Yep. Talk to me about MMA.
Oh, dude.
As I was doing some research on you, it turns out that you're a pretty good guy, and you've quite accomplished within your MMA sort of stuff. What's your journey in MMA?
It's pretty extensive. It's something that pre-COVID, I trained 4 or 5 days a week at a very, very good club, and it's a tricky one, man. Like I like doing kickboxing, boxing, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a little bit of wrestling, not as much as I should. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the main focus there. So for those of you playing at home, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the best way of describing it is when you're watching the UFC and they're on the feet doing the punching, kicking thing, and then eventually one of them tackles the other and they're doing the ground thing. It's the ground thing. That's kind of, it's all chokes, joint locks, all that sort of stuff in a very live environment.
Yeah. Is that grappling?
Grappling, exactly. Yep. So if you can see it, all my medals are up there on the – you can't really see it too well. But it's something that I'm really into. It's something that I do 4 or 5 days a week. So basically my schedule when it's like pre-COVID is basically I'll wake up at 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m. I'll go straight to the gym on my bike and I'll train with everyone for an hour, come home, eat breakfast, take Lara to daycare, and then do my production-y stuff. I'm in bed by sort of 9, 10 p.m. That's kind of my daily schedule. So it's a big part of my life. Competing is a big part of my life. There's something about the fact that if I've got I've got to start a timer when I do this stuff. I could talk about this for hours. I'll try not to. But when I have got somebody who weighs 20, 30 kilos more than me, who's trying to choke me out, who's angry, like not always the case, but when there's a really big, fierce, intense match that I'm having in the morning, there's something about walking into a bad meeting that is very easy to do after that. So there's basically nothing in the day that can make me anxious. There's nothing in the day that can make me upset or angry. Like, my whole theory with life, and I won't go into too deep and bore you to death, but the whole thing for me is that we as human beings need to experience a full range of human emotions. I think that's why a lot of people get really invested in angry in video games and stuff like that, because we all need to experience these emotions. Yep. Part of the thing I really like about martial arts is that it lets you experience a lot of the triumph, the defeat, the anger, the sadness. It lets you get all this out in a really controlled and safe environment, which can make you a more stable human being in day-to-day life. And I've found it's done that for me, absolutely. And I'm just obsessed with it, and I just love doing it, and I just can't wait to get back to it. It kills me that I can't do it at the moment. I'm in the backyard boxing every day, like I've got a punching bag, and it's just not the same.
Yep. Yeah, you just need to find a boxing bag with a heartbeat. No,
once I start, I can't stop. It's my life.
No, that's great, and it's really good to hear. What it does for you, because I mean, there's obviously a lot of misconceptions about MMA that
heaps
that it is just a bunch of meatheads just like trying to kill, not necessarily just box, but it looks like. I mean, I've only just started. I wouldn't say I'm a follow-up, but I only just recently started getting into the UFC because it was the first sport the first sport back in COVID, because they were doing that whole Fight Island thing and that sort of stuff. Right. And one of my best mates, Tim's, he's super into it, and we've just been watching it. And it's as soon as you get over, the obvious two people having a go at it, it's the athleticism and like the sheer stamina on these people.
It's brilliant.
Just like I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and, that's right.
I mean, even the women, like that is fucking brutal, man. Like, it's they're like I don't know the stats or anything, but like they look quicker and they look like they're packing like way more hits.
Yeah, savages.
It's a whole nother
it's a whole nother world, man. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in itself is much more accessible than specifically MMA. MMA does incorporate a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't actually have any striking in it per se. So people will often train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and boxing as well, and that'll sort of make them an MMA fighter. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in and of itself is very accessible to anyone. Like there's plenty of people that I do it with who are, real estate agents, business owners, doctors, students. All these people come together, and there's just this beautiful level playing field where it's just you and someone else in a controlled environment. And I've made some amazing, beautiful friendships through that. And that, we train together, so we have our morning routine that we go through. And then on the competition scene, it's like it's intense and we're sort of like brothers in arms. Like there's a lot of that sort of feeling going on. But it's like human chess. It's a real, like, honestly, it's like playing chess, but like there's so many ways you can move. And the people who are really experienced at it, their brains work in hilarious, interesting ways. Like they'll just, they'll do a counter to a move, and then they've got 40 other options from there that they know which way you're going to go. And there's all this like throwing 7 kinds of smoke, and everyone's got their own different style. There's a lot to it. But it's, I should have set that timer.
No, it's good. It's good. No, this is good. Like it's so good talking to all these different people and not necessarily focusing on, what they may be known for. Like this, as I said, it's an open conversation about whatever. But do you have like a number on like wins versus losses?
Yes, that number is available online, but it's only with certain federations though. So it's kind of, it's a bit disjointed and all over the place. But
I guess the question is, because I wanted you tell me that you've lost at least once. What's it like to be choked out?
I've lost a lot. I've lost a lot. And it's sort of the whole thing about getting better. I've been choked out once. By a man named Anthony, and that was that this year? I want to say it was this year. No, it was last year. Getting choked out is a fascinating experience. It was only late last year, and basically it was in the morning. So I did my whole morning routine. I woke up at 6 a.m., went to the gym. I had a really good match with him. He choked me out unconscious, and it was quite funny because I woke up in my bed and I was like, oh, how funny. I sort of sat up in my bed and I was like, I fully thought I went to the gym. It was just a dream. Jeez, it was realistic too. Anyway, I might as well
got fucked up.
I might as well start getting ready for the gym. And as I started getting out of bed, I woke up again in the gym and I was like, what's going on? Like, this isn't right. And I started freaking out. It was full Inception stuff. Like my brain, as I was choked out, pretended to wake up in bed, and then it completely clapped me out. So when I woke up, there's all these people looking at me like, you okay, man? I'm like, look, I'm okay. I'm not okay with the fact that I thought I just woke up in my own bed. Like, that was weird, okay? Yeah, getting choked out was fine. That part was weird.
Yeah, nobody told me about that.
Yeah. And, like, I've caused injuries to people, man. Like, I'm not too proud of saying it, but there's been a couple of things that have happened just as it is the nature of the sport. When you're competing, it's a pretty high-impact environment, and I've caused a couple of injuries that have stopped people from being able to do the sport. Which I felt quite remorseful for, but it's just, again, one of those things. It's just a learning experience. Sometimes there's pride that comes into it, and they refuse to tap when they should, and I guess that's a life experience as well to learn. So there's a lot to be learned from it and to be gained from it.
I mean, I guess that's what makes it such a fascinating sport, because I mean, nobody really sets out upon to like hurt someone. You want to win under the guidelines of what's required to win, you know?
Yeah,
you got to follow. Right. It may not look like it, but there are a lot of rules.
Yeah, that's right. There's heaps. And it's all pretty tightly governed. Might not look like it, but it really is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just want to get like a bit of an industry health check. Just going back to the production stuff. The talk of the town this week that I saw was like the AFL they're not going to pay their dancers. So they've put a call out for the AFL Grand Final in Queensland for 300 dancers to volunteer. So there's been a lot of speculation, obviously, around that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean,
how do they justify that?
It's apparent they're under 15, so they're not like professional dancers.
That's okay then.
Yeah, that's what they're sort of asking for. But I mean, I sort of just saw this as like it would probably exist in a lot of industries and that sort of stuff. But it's just really, it's quite disheartening, because I mean, people think of the AFL as, it's a big sporting league and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, much like the music industry, it doesn't only affect the music industry. The music industry is something that provides foundations and
100%
support and all that sort of stuff. So I think when if the AFL is going to come out and ask for volunteers, it's a bloody big company. It's a big profitable company that earns a lot of money. And I probably started answering your question.
No, that's fine. Like, dancing's hard. It's hard work. Movement in general, like that whole industry has been shell shocked by this thing, man. Like, it's not. Yeah, that's upset me a bit hearing that. Like, it's not. Like, I understand you can't afford to pay them. Don't do it. Like, it's not an industry that. Like, everyone involved in that industry puts so much work into it, from the choreographers to the people actually doing the dancing themselves. Everyone involved is so much work that goes into it, and so many hours, and not a shitload of money. And so that sucks. But I see what you're saying. And it's rough. Like, if the AFL is having to take those kinds of measures, it's a good indicator that the health of the industry is not in a good way.
I suppose that's definitely like the dance, but I mean, it is arts. It's like essentially you're paying these kids in exposure, but I guarantee these kids aren't, they're not going to be in the rolling credits of the AFL Grand Final saying that, this is the exposure. They're just they're a thing. But I mean, like, why create a show that requires 300 unpaid dancers?
And who's going to see? I don't know. That I can't I'm sure there's more to it that I don't know about, but I can't wrap my mind around why that could be a feasible idea. I mean, like, even when I get, say, like RMIT students who really want to come and volunteer and do stuff on a gig, I'll still pay them. And like, if they refuse money, I'll still feed them. And if they refuse that, I'll come to their house and take their kneecaps. Joking. But it's seriously though, it's, you know, everyone should be paid. There's enough money going around. Everyone should be paid. And if you can't get paid, don't do the show. Like, it's, you know what I mean?
I guess
like,
on a side note too, I mean, I'm really not that excited to see the AFL Grand Final halftime show because it's just going to be a bunch of unpaid dancers. Like,
I'm curious about how they find the time to do all the choreographing and rehearsing, and where have they been rehearsing, and have they paid for that space? And there's a lot of question marks there.
Yeah. I guess all these 15-year-olds just get themselves to the to the rehearsals, and it doesn't put their parents out or anything. And
Jesus, man.
Code Red and We Make Events is quite a large campaign that's coming up. You're obviously quite involved and quite passionate about that, as much like everyone is. What is sort of that movement to you?
Yeah, so it's something that was flagged to me by young David Fairless not too long ago, but as soon as he started talking my ear off about it, I instantly became quite passionate about it. It basically, in a nutshell, the government is providing support packages for a number of people within the arts industry and even some venues, which is amazing because they desperately need it. There's one aspect of the industry that's been overlooked, and that is the production companies, the sound lighting companies, and the people who, quote unquote, make the show happen. I've rung around business owners myself. A lot of them in a really bad spot, and I don't think people are fully aware of the issue at hand and how badly that's going to affect things moving forward. There is, surveys that have come out that saying there's a large percentage of them that won't last the next 6 months. Basically, the movement is, the idea is that, and it's quite funny because the thing that I get asked a lot when I'm calling people about this and trying to get people involved is like, what's it going to do? We're going to light stuff up. I'm going to light stuff up in red. What's it going to do? And the answer is, listen, it makes a difference, because if enough people follow that Instagram page, which is really, really important to do, and if you could put a link up on your socials, that'd be great. But if people can follow that Instagram and make a bit of noise about it, the thing is, media organizations need to pick this up, and they're not going to pick that up unless there's enough of a groundswell to pick it up. If we make the story big enough that they can't ignore it, then they will broadcast it. And when they broadcast it, the government has to listen. And I'm not advocating that the government just gives us heaps of money, or maybe they should. I don't know, but it's not people like me who need to worry about it. It's the JPJs, it's the Norwests, it's the above and beyond production services. It's all these companies out there, mid, large, small, whatever. They're getting absolutely nothing. And I swear I said this is going to be a nutshell statement, but it's not. But it's all about advocacy, just making that statement to make sure that people are actually aware that there's a big issue, and it's going to cause much bigger issues moving forward if it's not addressed sometime soon. Yeah,
I mean, it's a funny one for me. I was actually having this conversation with my partner today, because I mean, because COVID is such a fickle bitch, and I mean, essentially, like, because none of us, including the government, have ever been through something like this before, and no one's written the playbook on how to respond to something like this, I sort of have that, thought in the back of my mind of, we're all struggling. I don't know. I sort of struggle to sort of, I'm 100% supporting, this obviously. But the reason why I sort of just bring this up, and just to have a bit of a conversation with you really, because that's what podcasts are, is just like, I mean, I saw an article yesterday about like landscape architects are also, having their red alert, and they're involved with a lot of, issues in regards to the fact that gardeners are able to work, but landscape architects are not, because a typical landscape architect cannot work by themselves. They're dealing with machinery, they're dealing with structural, lots of, work goes into this sort of stuff. And it really just sort of makes me think that, we are all in a red alert, and it's really hard to sort of focus ourselves, to any one in particular thing. But I mean, the music industry, I think, is really important to remember that only just months before COVID, we had And like every year, there are so many fundraisers, such as like the bushfires and that sort of stuff, where or Ability Fest, where all your suppliers are giving millions and millions of dollars worth of donations in equipment and labor and all that sort of stuff, and there is no hand put out. And when it comes to something like a COVID, where a red alert is put out, the thing is the favor is not returned. I think that's the really important thing to focus on in these sorts of things, that the arts are essentially the only thing that sort of can single-handedly save culture.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, that sort of thought definitely makes me, like as an individual, I'm a freelance sole trader. I run my own race, and I consider myself to be looked after pretty well, considering, this has been the longest time I haven't worked, and I've turned it around to upskill in a lot of ways. But I consider myself very lucky to be in that position. This red alert is going to be really important, because I mean, God knows how long this is going to last for the entertainment industry and the people who put these things on, and to create that new normal that apparently we were all working for. There's going to be some essentials that may not be there anymore.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the part of it. Like, you make a good point raising the example of the landscape architect, because parts of their industry have been allowed to return, and there's probably a lot of them doing it a bit tough as well. I don't know their plight. I don't know enough about them to be able to make an informed statement about it. But I guess all I can make an informed statement is that when that new COVID normal, when it comes back, is going to be an interesting landscape, because a lot of people who were involved in the chess game of the industry will be gone. And I guess it's all about just mitigating that. And it's not to say that we're more or less important than anyone else. I guess if you look chronologically at COVID as a span of time, we were the first ones. The industry were the first ones to drop, and we'll be the last ones to return. There'll be a phased process for everything else, for every other industry to come back. I'm sure some of them are suffering pretty badly, some maybe even worse than us. But we have an industry that takes all walks of life, that we don't just get the business owners who are taking a bit of a hit but have enough in the bank to be able to push through this, and they're pretty happy about it. I know a lot of loaders, I know a lot of backline guys and stuff who are just like calling me saying, what am I going to do? Like, I've had conversations with loaders who have said stuff to me like, suicide's the only option. Like, it sounds dramatic saying that, but I've had these conversations with them, because they're like, what am I going to do? The government's not there for us. We're getting job seeker. It's getting reduced. Like, these sort of conversations are like things that I've had to help people with, and I'm not qualified for that. So it's an interesting experience to be part of this, but it's something that fully aware that other industries are suffering as well, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Urgently. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I know people that have been in this industry for 50 years doing what they do.
Exactly.
They're very bloody good at it. And if these job roles don't exist, then, it's pretty hard to jump ship I don't even know what I would do. And I've only been doing it for, sort of 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And, you've never thought any of this would have happened, really.
That's right. And it's trying to avoid that knock-on effect of when things come back and promoters start asking for budgets on stuff, and those budgets are suddenly looking very, very high because there's no one around, and the only people that are around now need a lot of money to fill the hole that they created during COVID. That's going to have an effect on ticket prices. And once ticket prices get affected, punters aren't going to come. So it's kind of like this, it might just be, the events people are having a whinge, but it's like, hang on, dude, this might cripple the art sector if we don't do something about it. There's an ongoing effect. We as a people are very short-sighted, and there's an ongoing threat here that we need to be really careful about, or we're all going to be looking for new jobs and there won't be any gigs, frankly.
I guess it's another opportunity to throw out, what Support Act are doing for individuals and on the industry basis on providing, not only financial relief to people in the arts community, but they're also providing grants and stuff for people to upskill, whether that's being, upskill in their own industry or even upskill to depart from the industry. They're offering those sort of solutions to these people. There is the 24-hour crisis hotline for any of those people who are really struggling. One that I took up on was through Crew Care. And I did my certificate number 1 in mental health first aid.
Awesome. Perfect.
Which I could not recommend that highly for anyone, whether that be in this industry that we're talking about or any industry or just general your work, like every day you walk in life. It's an incredible course and it's a couple of days. It only takes a moment out of your time. It's pretty cheap. Otherwise, you can get funding through places like Support Act or Crew Care. But
Crew Care will fund it. Every workplace should have someone that's qualified with that certificate. Every workplace needs at least one person for sure.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're a qualified counsellor or that sort of thing. You are essentially identifying in your workplace, in your life, people who need assistance in that first step in whether it be seeing a GP or going to go see a psychologist or just, giving them the tools to be able to look after themselves. But it's starting that conversation and getting that, breaking down those walls.
Totally, man. Just giving people the tools to be able to deal with the situations that arise. It makes so much sense.
Beautiful. I've got one last question, but is there anything else that we've missed? Anything that might have skimmed over? Anything else you're working on? You want to?
No, I'm
tell
happy
the whole word about it?
There's a lot of weird and wonderful facets to what I do in my daily life, so probably skipped over a lot of it. But I'm pretty happy. Hit me with it. What do you got?
Very good. So last thing I do, I have created a Spotify playlist for the podcast. But essentially, every guest gives me 5 artists that they would put on their record label, and you've got a showcase event at South by Southwest, the Dolla Music Conference.
Okay.
Who are the 5 artists, past or present, that you would put on Jensy's record label?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and essentially this playlist is like the most varied, creative, inspiring playlist. There's some shockers. And
I listen to some weird music, dude. I don't know how much if it's going to be South by Southwest, it needs to be like a dance music thing.
No. It's you're setting the new standard.
I'm setting the new standard. Okay. Rival consoles.
Rival consoles.
Do you just want the artist name?
Yeah, if you've got a song for me to chuck individually, otherwise I go through and listen to it and find my favourite.
I'll give you 5 artists and then you can run through their songs and I can give you recommendations if you want. But the first one's called Rival Consoles.
Rival Consoles, where are they from?
From the US.
Yep.
It's a good question, actually.
Thank you.
Dina Amy, who's a local artist, friend of mine as well, who does wonderful things for the industry.
Yep. Dina Amy.
Yep. Look her up. You'll find her. She's an actress as well. She's a brilliant person. Dolla, who's obviously he looks like me apparently. He's doing, as we spoke about before, he's doing some pretty amazing things for the industry and for the dance music in Australia on the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this is tricky stuff. Chiasmos as well, which is a dance music duo with Oliver Arnold's and this other dude who's really into some good house music, and they've produced a pretty incredible orchestral dance scene together.
How do you spell that?
K-I-A. Chiasmos. Kiasmos.
Uh-huh.
And I reckon... Oh, man, this has really caught me off guard here. I reckon I'll put someone really weird in there, like Ohio players or...
yes. Cool.
Yeah, I'll stick with Ohio players. That'd be dope.
I bought one of their vinyls last night.
Really? Which one?
In bed, and it arrived today. From Northside Records. Again, shout out to... I don't think I've ever mentioned them, but I was sitting in bed just going like... looking through just like vinyls to buy that were cheap, and I was still in bed when they arrived at my house. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
You just like hand delivered them.
The guy came to the foot of your bed. Now, Ohio players would be on that because they're just amazing.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
that's perfect, man. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good to
Likewise.
Talk to a like-minded individual and to get your background and pass my name on to Dylan and hopefully we can be good friends. Thanks, man. Thanks so much for joining me.
No, man. Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure, man. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for listening to episode number 6 with Jensy on My Normal Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like and subscribe, and even better, leave a review on any of the platforms that you listen or watch this podcast on. Please feel free to get in touch and let me know if you're enjoying the podcast. But until next week, guys, signing out. My name is Aidan King, and thank you for listening to My Normal Podcast.